Yo, what's up, guys? So, welcome to my first solo episode ever. This was inspired by Mission Save a Life. And actually, I was supposed to interview a guest provided by them, but basically, due to my own self sabotage, I blocked that from happening, I think. But somehow, this opportunity for me to record alone, like interviewing myself, just happened to appear. So, I'm gonna roll with it, and this is it. Let's talk about mental health. Let's do it. Yo, guys, welcome to another episode of the Looks Like Gone podcast. This episode is going to be different from all my previous ones because this time it's just me. And the purpose of this episode is actually to support the cause brought to my attention by Constantine and Jennifer from Mission Save a Life. And the purpose of Mission Save a Life is to raise awareness for mental health and suicide prevention. Now, I would love to interview somebody about this topic, but I think I should start with myself. So this is my first time doing an episode by myself. Now, I have some questions to ask my guest, well, to ask myself this time. And the first question is this. Number one is about general well-being. How would you describe your overall mental health these days? Well, last week I was feeling a bit numb. And that was challenging because I felt nothing. Yeah, that was challenging. And I didn't know what the purpose of anything was. I just felt very lost about a week ago. But at some point, I had this insight that, hey, challenging things will happen to me in my life. No matter how much I try to avoid them, it's impossible to remove challenges from my life. It's impossible to remove discomfort from appearing in my life. So, if it's clear that challenges and discomfort are already coming my way and they can appear at any moment, then what can I do to prepare for that? And the only thing that comes to mind is to intentionally choose discomfort in my free time. So when that random life challenge appears, I will have the capacity to deal with it in the best way possible. It makes sense, right? You know challenges are coming. You know they are coming. So what can you do? Do you want to prepare for them or not? If you choose, yes, I want to prepare for them, okay, how do I want to prepare for life challenges? You got to do something challenging intentionally. And for me, that's been running. So shout out to my friend Brian for inviting me out to run yesterday morning at 5 a.m. We did 9K, which for me is a lot because I don't run often. But I think that's really going to change now. Yeah. So thank you, Brian. Thanks for that. Okay, number two, I have a question about past experiences. Have you ever experienced any challenges with your mental health in the past? I think my biggest challenge has been last year, where that was the first time that I ever heard my mind say, it wouldn't be so bad if a bus ran me over today. That was the furthest that I ever got in that. I just kind of I felt that it wasn't too important for me to continue being alive. And like I was kind of hoping that something would just take me out. Even though I wasn't planning on ending my own life or anything like that, but still I could hear there was this momentum starting in my mind about, it wouldn't be so bad if something just ended my life right now. And the reason I was experiencing that was extreme guilt and shame, which I've mentioned before in a previous podcast episode with Roy Wang. Roy Wang is a masculine energy coach, and I was telling him about this experience of mine. Actually, after I told him, I felt really shaky. I had never expressed that before. And the reason why I felt that extreme guilt and shame was because I ended a 3-year relationship uh, on impulse because I thought that I had finally met uh, my soulmate, which was somebody else, not my current partner. So on impulse, I decided I have to end this and I have to start that because that's my soulmate and not this person. And I can only be happy in my life if I am with my soulmate. That was my logic in that moment. And so I did it. I ended the relationship. I began the new one with the new person. And it was amazing for about a month. After the month, when all the infatuation wore off, it feels like drugs, right? Like after those, like the drugs of falling in love wore off, suddenly I realized what I had done, that I had acted on impulse and done things that hurt people that I care about. And just thinking about the fact that I had been impulsive and that had hurt other people, that caused me to spiral into shame. Yeah, and shame is a lower vibration than guilt because guilt feels like, oh man, I feel bad that I did that action, like that was bad. But shame is saying I am a bad person. Shame is identifying as an unworthy person. And I was stuck in that. And that was extremely challenging for me. Um, the positive part about that was that it allowed me to learn the skill of radical self forgiveness, which I think I would not have learned if I had not been stuck in a spiral of chronic shame. So, what is radical self forgiveness? Radical self forgiveness is realizing that the things that you did happened because of your level of awareness in that moment. And there was no way that you could have done it differently. It was part of your journey. So actually, radical self-forgiveness is you stop trying to forgive yourself because there's nothing to forgive. It's okay. It was just part of your journey. And realizing that allowed me to finally heal myself from that deep, deep shame that I don't wish upon anyone. Like after that experience, I have never, or I've done my best to never shame anybody ever again, even as a joke. Or if it's a joke, then like I would make it very, very clear that I'm joking, right? Kind of like when you roast your loved ones, like, but it's clear that you're joking. But I would never play with someone into making them feel ashamed of themselves. I don't, I can't do it anymore. Even if I don't like the person, I I cannot play with them into feeling shame anymore. Shame is not necessary. uh, I realized that the feeling of falling in love is just a chemical reaction that happens in your body when you meet someone who you think completes you. When you think you finally met someone who completes you, it triggers this feeling that feels like drugs. Like it's like, oh man, it feels like drugs. And it can be very distracting. It's distracted me so many times in my life, and my friends in my hometown know what I'm talking about. Um, so now if that feeling ever starts to appear for me, I just observe it, and I know, like, hey, I felt you before, and I know what you're trying to say, and it's not true. Nobody can complete us. Nobody can complete us. We can only realize that we're already complete. There is no other half. You are your other half because you are complete. You're a whole person. And the sooner you realize that, the better. I know with the movies and the songs, like mainstream music, mainstream movies, I know what they've been programming into us, that we should seek our one true love. I get it. It sells tickets, it sells albums. I get it. And nobody took the time to tell us, hey, they're just trying to sell a product. That's not actual reality. Okay, so now you're being told now, hey, you are a whole person already. And if you begin searching for your other half, like I did for so many years, if you go out and search for that other half, you are implying to yourself that you are incomplete, and you will feel incomplete. Whatever you believe is real actually feels real. So be careful with what you believe. If possible, go in your mind and find all of your beliefs and see which ones you want to keep and which ones you want to let go of, because many of them were installed by people who didn't have our well-being in their best interest, into making them feel ashamed of themselves. I don't I can't do it anymore. Even if I don't like the person, I I cannot play with them into feeling shame anymore. Shame is not necessary. Okay, supportive people. Do you have people you feel comfortable talking to about your mental health? Friends, family, or therapist? Actually, I've never seen a therapist. I've done a lot of meditation and a lot of inner work and self-observation. Yeah, I'm still down to experience that, like speaking to a therapist or a coach. Like for example, like I did talk to Roy Wang, the masculinity coach that I mentioned, and I mean he's also a therapist. He's a therapist and a coach, and talking to him was extremely helpful. Uh, do I talk to my family about my mental health? Not really, except for my brother, maybe. And maybe my cousins. But I think it would be unfair to talk to my family about my mental health because they still haven't learned how to handle their own mental health. We just don't talk about it. It's not something that comes up. And I used to get really annoyed about my family not checking up on my mental health, right? Like I lived in Vietnam for 3.5 years, and I was here during COVID. And then after those 3.5 years, I finally went back home to see my family. And I just thought, hey, like now they're gonna check up on me, check up on my mental health, see how I'm doing, right? but they never asked me about that. They just said, "Oh, hey, how's Vietnam? Oh, you look good. Oh, you shouldn't have cut your hair. You look better with long hair." But nobody ever checked on my mental health. And I used to be really upset about that. Like, how can my family never check on my mental health? But then I realized later, of course, they're not checking up on my mental health because they don't know how to check on their own mental health. And upon realizing that, I can't even be angry at them anymore because they just haven't learned that skill. So, what can I do? I think all I can do is just keep doing my own inner work and being there for them when they need it. Because different people in my family are going through different phases and different challenges. And I want to be there for them. I feel like now I can. Now that I'm not distracted with being annoyed or being angry about that, I can be more present for them now and be more supportive. Do I have any friends that I can talk to about my mental health? A few. I have a few, maybe like two or three. So thanks, guys. You were super helpful to me, and I really appreciate that I can share things with you. And yeah, it's really helpful for me to be able to share that with you guys. It's kind of similar to blogging about it, right? Because like as soon as you put it out there, you start to see more clearly exactly how you are thinking and what things to adjust. Because like usually we are causing our own suffering, right? So it's good to see how we are doing that. Self-care practices. Do you have any self-care practices that you find helpful for your mental well-being? Meditation is super helpful. I feel most people don't trust meditation because it's so easy to do, and at the same time it's challenging, right? Because meditation is the art of doing nothing. You're not doing meditation, you're doing nothing, and the byproduct of doing nothing is meditation. Now my friend's girlfriend, she recently went to a vipassana meditation retreat in India. That sounds challenging. That's hardcore. It's like 10 hours of meditation per day, I think for 10 days. That is challenging. And I do want to try that eventually. The way I can this the way I like to describe meditation is like it's just your mind taking a dump. Your mind is just digesting and processing and releasing the things that you don't want to think about, right? But in meditation, you make yourself look at all the mental noise and observe them and allow yourself to digest them and process them and then of course to release them. Yeah. And then you realize, oh, everything's actually okay. Things are okay right now. We're gonna be okay. Not only we're gonna be okay, but we're okay now. Positive reframing. Is there anything about your past experiences that has helped you grow stronger or appreciate your mental well-being more? I think one thing is if you are feeling sad or feeling depressed, consuming pleasure is not going to help. Consuming pleasure is just going to feel good in the short term, and then you will have a delayed crash. And once you crash, you will feel terrible again. And then what do you do to feel better? You might go back to consuming more pleasure. And then you're stuck in this loop. And I was stuck in that loop for a long time. Um, so now I know enough. Pleasure is not the way to feel better long term. I think we have to intentionally choose discomfort. That way we can deal with the natural discomfort, the natural uncomfortable moments of life. We have to prepare ourselves for it. If we hope, if we just hope that life gets more comfortable, I think it's a big mistake. I think it's a big mistake. We have to become the person that can handle these challenges. And it's totally doable. Just start with anything that feels uncomfortable for you. It could be going out and running. It could be just sweeping the floor. It could be just cleaning the bathroom. Just start with anything that you feel like lazy to do or is uncomfortable to do. Just choose something and then just do it. Just try it. And then you will see that when a life challenge appears after you have been preparing for it, it's much easier to handle. And it doesn't feel like a big deal anymore because you've prepared for it. It makes sense, right? Well, guys, thanks for listening to my first ever solo episode. Yeah, well, I had never thought about doing this. So also thank you so much to Constantine and Jennifer and Mission to Save a Life. Because I think I would not have done this if I had not been in touch with you guys. So thank you so much. And yeah, for anyone who is having mental health challenges, yeah, please reach out to somebody that that can listen to you, whether it's a therapist or a coach or a good friend or a family member, like somebody with high awareness. Yeah, I suggest you reach out to them. I suggest you write about how you feel and release these things, let them out. The more you suppress them, the more it's gonna hurt. So imagine like holding in your farts. Eventually, you gotta let it out because it's painful, right? Yeah, and if you don't have anyone to talk to, feel free to reach out to me. Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, looks Saigon. You can find me on TikTok, also looks Saigon. And yeah, guys, thank you so much for listening, and have a great rest of your day. Uh, I realized that the feeling of falling in love is just a chemical reaction that happens in your body when you meet someone who you think completes you. When you think you finally met someone who completes you, it triggers this feeling that feels like drugs. Like it's like, oh man, it feels like drugs. And it can be very distracting. It's distracted me so many times in my life, and my friends in my hometown know what I'm talking about. Um, so now if that feeling ever starts to appear for me, I just observe it, and I know like, hey, I felt you before, and I know what you're trying to say, and it's not true. Nobody can complete us. Nobody can complete us. We can only realize that we're already complete. There is no other half. You are your other half because you are complete. You're a whole person. And the sooner you realize that, the better. I know with the movies and the songs, like mainstream music, mainstream movies, I know what they've been programming into us, that we should seek our one true love. I get it. It sells tickets, it sells albums. I get it. And nobody took the time to tell us, hey, they're just trying to sell a product that's not actual reality. Okay, so now you're being told now, hey, you are a whole person already. And if you begin searching for your other half, like I did for so many years, if you go out and search for that other half, you are implying to yourself that you are incomplete and you will feel incomplete. Whatever you believe is real actually feels real. So be careful with what you believe. If possible, go in your mind and find all of your beliefs and see which ones you want to keep and which ones you want to let go of, because many of them were installed by people who didn't have our well-being in their best interest.